While we're waiting, I realized I want to introduce you by your full names. I'll then call on you by your first name.
Good evening, citizens of Fremont County. I am Linda Barton, Chair of the League of Women Voters of Fremont County. The League is pleased to host candidate forums during the 2020 election season. The League of Women Voters of Fremont County, Wyoming, is a nonpartisan grassroots organization and part of the State and National League of Women Voters. We believe voters should play a critical role in democracy. The League encourages informed and active participation in government. The League is dedicated to voter education, voter rights, and to providing information that helps voters make informed decisions who wanted to promote our free and open election process. Over 90 community members participated. League members submitted the questions being asked tonight at this forum. The League does not support share information with the public. We inform the citizens of Fremont County on the many ways for information about our local elections, the General Election Voter Guide, and candidate forums. We will receive for roads, schools, housing, and social programs over the next 10 years. By completing the short 2020 census questionnaire online at 2020census.gov. Additionally, our Fremont County Public Libraries and librarians are ready to help you with your census. Election education. To become a member, go to the League of Women Voters, fc.org/become a member, and to join our listserv, please contact us at info@leagueofwomenvotersfc.org. And finally, the League thanks Will Hill of County 10 and his dedicated staff for partnering with us to host and record this forum, along with the Wind River Internet for providing the video feed. Additionally, we want to thank Steve Peck of the Riverton Ranger and Lander Journal for printing the General Election Guide, Julie Cornea of Black Dog Design, and Ann Austin of Austin Design for their graphic design work. The Wyoming Community Foundation for financially supporting the printing and mailing of General Election Guide to all Fremont County households. And to our county clerk, Julie Fries, and the Fremont County Election Office staff for providing guidance and information over the past few months. Thank you. Good evening, citizens of Fremont County. I am Linda Barton, Chair of the League of Women Voters of Fremont County. Thank you very much, and enjoy the forum.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Ann Magnan, and I am the forum moderator for this evening. When the League of Women Voters of Fremont County asked me to moderate, I jumped at the chance. I firmly believe our democracy is based on our responsibility and right to vote. Tonight is another opportunity to educate ourselves in preparation for exercising that right and responsibility. Tonight we have 8. In alphabetical order, the candidates are Kathy Hitt, Taylor Jacobs, Scott Jensen, Sherry Plaisted, Cami Polenda, Haley Redden, Sarah Riley, and Tim Watkins. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to go over the format so that the viewers understand what they're going to see this evening. We're first going to start with a prepared 2-minute opening statement by each candidate. Candidates were asked to identify the reasons they are running for school board and share them with us. Second, we will ask each candidate a couple of questions, allowing for a 2-minute response to each of those questions by the candidates. Third, we will ask each candidate the same single question, and they will have 1 minute to respond. Around 7:20, 7:25, we'll move to the one-word lightning rounds. For the first lightning round, each candidate will be given 1 word and 1 minute to respond to that word. The next candidate will be given a different word and will have 1 minute to respond, so on and so forth. For the second lightning round, we will only allow a 30-second response to the prompt. The idea with the second round is to hear what associations each candidate makes when given a single prompt. Finally, the candidates will be presented with a short scenario to respond to. I will review when we start each section, how much time, what the structure is, so that nobody needs to keep that straight. We have asked the live audience to refrain from clapping, commenting, or dancing during candidate responses. We'll randomly alternate question leads in order, and I'll call on you when it's your turn, and we ask each candidate to respect the time limit. Any questions? That's a lot. Okay, then we're going to start with prepared opening statements. And Cammie, you're up first.
Good evening. My name is Cammie. I'm a Lander resident. I was born and raised in Lander. I'm a graduate of Lander Valley High School. I'm not going to tell you what year. And I'm actually a fourth generation Landerite. And so I have deep roots here in this community. My mom was also a teacher at Southside Elementary, which is organic for those of you who are school. And I have 3 children in the Lander schools. They're all organic beef right now. And the reason that I decided to run for school board is because I felt like that parents really needed to have a voice, and I really felt like teachers needed to have a voice, and I felt like I was a good candidate for that because I am a teacher, and I've been teaching for 14 years now, and I've taught in 4 different districts in Fremont County, and having that experience of working in different districts, I've seen a lot and how things work beautifully, and also how things can be improved, and I think that would lend itself very well to a school board. I also feel like a board that's leading education should have an educator on the board. That just makes sense to me. It just seems like common sense. And an educator would help the other people on the board that are not in education understand the struggles that the teachers are having, administrators, what questions administrators are going to have. And I think that would just benefit the board. I also have a really strong commitment because I do have children and other family members, and I love kids.
Thanks, Cammie. Scott?
Sure. I'd like to start by thanking the League of Women Voters for hosting our event tonight and for your service to our community. Thank you, Anne, for volunteering or accepting the role of moderator and counting further than all the folks sitting up here that are willing to volunteer their time and energy and put themselves out there, looking to support our kids and provide them educational opportunities. A little bit about me. My formative years were spent growing up in Evanston and Casper. For most of my life, I've been a proud Natrona County Mustang, but I have swapped that allegiance and I'm now fully behind our Lander Tigers. I'm a U.S. Army vet. After college, I was a software engineer for a number of years, and for the last 15 years, I've been a law enforcement officer investigating all kinds of crime, everything from the online sexual exploitation of kids to criminal and national security hacking, counterintelligence and counterterrorism matters, and most recently violent crime to include homicide. I've worked cases both domestically, overseas. I've also served as a SWAT operator. But more important than any of that, I'm a father to 7 kids. The oldest is a graduate of Lander Valley High School, and the others are currently attending Gannett Peak, Baldwin Creek, Lander Middle School, and LVHS. I'm invested in this community and in the success of our schools. I don't believe that our schools face any kind of existential threat. We have a long history here in Lander of both academic and extracurricular success in our schools. Our schools are excellent. But we are going to face challenges as we confront our wavering economy, the budget cuts that are likely coming. I've been serving on the school board for the past year, and I believe that my unique background and perspective has been of value to the board, and I hope to be able to continue in that capacity with the trust and support of the community in the election next month. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Sarah?
I have a Bachelor of Science in English Education, and I taught middle school and high school English before I was forced to medically retire. Schools have always been important to me, and even when I was younger, I really wanted to serve on a school board someday. I enjoy creating policies that support staff and student success, and while I can no longer work full-time as a classroom teacher, it would mean a lot to me to be involved in supporting students in this way. I have experience working with students in low-income districts, and as our community faces the potential for budget cuts for our schools, the ability to be flexible with our resources is something I'm prepared to do. As we navigate that process, and with any other policy discussions we have, I welcome the opportunity to be clear and transparent with our board staff, students, and stakeholders. I will communicate in detail with our stakeholders, I feel like the success of a school district really affects the entire community, and they have a right to understand our decision-making process as a school board should I be chosen to join that team. Student achievement isn't just limited to test scores and college admissions, but goes far beyond into the person as a whole, including mental health, school safety, and community involvement as key components to a well-rounded education is the school board's responsibility, and I'd really like to be a part of that as well. Community and stakeholder feedback is essential to school success, and all communications and recommendations from the community should be carefully considered and discussed before we vote on any policy changes. It's important to me that the school board always does what's best for students, and that community concerns are listened to clearly, completely, and professionally addressed. I feel like in the past few years, communication between board members and stakeholders hasn't always been productive, and I look forward to the opportunity to help kind of bridge that gap and mend some fences. My experience as a teacher, parent, curriculum planner, and much more have led to great strengths in understanding the particular needs of a school district. And I also feel very strongly that a school board should contain one, preferably several former educators or current educators. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Taylor?
Thank you. I'm a Wyoming native and I have 3 sons, 2 of which attend Gannett Peak Elementary and 1 attending preschool. My children are my #1 priority and I believe they are our greatest asset. My husband Justice was born in this wonderful community and we returned to Lander 5 years ago to raise our children. I have been a school psychologist for almost strategies, a vast knowledge of child development, and I understand the education culture. Some of my experience includes providing district services for 7 Wyoming districts and 3 California districts. I feel it is my duty to serve my community, to help provide a positive environment, and to teach my children the importance of serving others. I served on the Lander Children's Museum Board for 4 years, and during this time I was able to build relationships with families in the community as well as gain an understanding of board procedures and budgeting. I make it my responsibility to be present in school and athletic events. During these community events, I have the opportunity to have countless conversations with parents who relay their students' successes and achievements, but also their concerns. I come from a family of educators. My father was a principal at South before becoming the special ed director and then serving as the curriculum director before retiring from Lander Schools this last spring. My mother is a 3rd grade teacher at Gannett Peak. I say this not to name drop, but to express my commitment to education. Many nights, our dinner conversations have revolved around education talks and how we can make our schools more successful. I want to strengthen the bridge of communication between parents and our school staff who work so diligently to educate and nourish our children. I believe my professional knowledge of education, the school culture, child development, and my experience as a concerned and active parent make me a valuable asset to the Fremont County School District Board. I will listen to your concerns and ensure parents and school staff are valued and heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Cherry?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sherry Plaisted, and I am the stay-at-home mother of 5 kids. 4 of them attend school here in Lander. We moved here from Flagstaff about 3 years ago, and when we moved here, my oldest son was struggling academically, and so I've seen firsthand how a great teacher can change the life of a student. So I have a great respect and admiration for the educators here in Lander. I believe that it takes a village to raise a child, and I'm grateful for the village that we live in. I believe that my role as a parent is to ensure that my children are pushed to reach their potential, that they are held accountable for their actions, that they are recognized for their accomplishments, and are aided in their shortcomings. They need to be taught to respect others, and they need to be encouraged to be kind. I know that my role as a parent will be an asset to the school board. I am living with the decisions made every day. My kids, their friends, and their peers are also living with those decisions that are made by the school board. I want to help ensure that those decisions are going to foster a positive educational experience for all students so that they can prosper. I believe that integrity and hard work are what it takes to make our students. Don't have an agenda to push or really a platform to stand on. It just has a sincere passion for our students and a desire to make our school district the very best that it can be. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the League of Women Voters of Fremont County in 2010 for hosting this event and making the information accessible to the voters of our communities.
Thanks, Chair. Kathy?
Good evening, I'm Kathy Hitt. I currently serve on the school board and I've been on there for 4 years. I am a Wyomingite. I grew up on the less pretty side of the mountain in Rock Springs, but now have joy living in Lander, and I've been here over 20 years. I feel like I am a part of the community. I've spent 41 years in educational pursuit. I've been a teacher, I've been a principal, I've been a curriculum director, I've been a superintendent actually twice here, and am now retired and felt I had the experience and the knowledge to lend something to the school board. So I do feel like we are kind of in a rocky time right now, and that's why I decided to run again. We are going to be facing some budgetary issues coming down the road. We know that from what the governor has said, and just being an informed citizen tells you that the economy is not that good right now. So I feel like my knowledge would help the school board to negotiate through things. I understand how schools work. I understand how teachers think. I understand how buildings run. I understand budgets. I understand being the administrator and being the superintendent in a district, and I want to continue to share that educational experience and knowledge with the community of Lander and Fremont County School District number 1. And I echo what the others have said. Thank you all for having this forum. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Haley?
Real quick, hi Kathy, I'm from Green River too, so
I know.
I know that you're from Rock Springs.
We'll talk later.
Alrighty, good evening. My name is Haley Redden. I have been living in Lander for the past 3 years, and I love every minute of it. Like I said, I moved here from Green River, Wyoming, and you know I have never met such welcoming people in my life. It's truly a wondrous community. My boyfriend and I was more able to fully participate in my daughter's school and social life, which she is here. I wanted her to be a part of this forum. I have coached soccer. I have also worked in the pediatrics section at our local clinic, so that is where most people know me from. You know, my daughter has thrived here, and that's really all that I could wish for. She has excelled so much within this school district. And because this community has given us so much, I have wanted to give back. I have seen how hard the school district works, and I hope I can build bridges and bring a new voice to the table. I want to support our teachers, and I want to find innovative solutions to the challenges that we face, especially in these uncharted times with a pandemic, with budgets, with so much looming on us and so much pressure on us and our children. I just want to be able to bring what I can and serve this community however I can. And not to sound like a parrot, but I will thank the League of Women Voters, I will thank County 10, I will thank all of the viewers watching us at this moment, and everyone participating in our wonderful democracy and learning what they can about voters, about the board. And I hope if I'm on board, I can serve well with everyone, and we all do wonderfully for our students.
Thanks, Haley. And Tim?
Hello, my name is Tim Watkins. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, Fremont County, County 10, for inviting us on here. I grew up here in Lander, Wyoming. I attended, well, I was there last science at Alden Creek. I got to experience the promoting career as I went for direction. So I'm very thankful to the teachers and the school district here. And when I got to college, I left the state to go to college, and I found out that I was really well prepared. And because of some professors, we never met anybody from Wyoming. So that was a good experience. Since then, I have lived in many different places. In my career, I am an RN. I used to be a commissioned officer for the U.S. Public Health Service. I lived in Phoenix. I have worked with many populations of people that I work with teach HIV patients. I used to report to CDC, so I used to go to Atlanta and report and with hepatitis C patients. And then eventually an opening came up in Wyoming, and I had a chance to move back, and I took it gratefully. I moved back in 2011 and started working in the reservation with the Arapaho and Kawashiki. My children grew up, well, my daughter's grown up, my son's still in high school. My daughter's now 20, she attended high school here in Lander. And I'm grateful for all those experiences. What I want to do is help communicate between our stakeholders, the state board, the teachers, and students. And give voice to voices that sometimes require the Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks for your introductions, team. We're going to start with our first question. And again, you're going to have 2 minutes to respond to this. That will hold up to 10 seconds sign, the alarm will go off, same thing you've just seen. Okay. And we're going to start by talking about money. It is a lengthy question. In a 1995 landmark education case, the Wyoming Supreme Court decided that the state's school funding, which had resulted in long-time funding disparities among school districts, failed to satisfy the state's obligation to provide equal education. The court also articulated what a constitutionally compliant education must include. Over the past 5 years, lawmakers have cut public school budgets by more than $100 million. Currently, the legislature has identified close to a $400 million deficit in the school foundation and capital construction funds. A few weeks ago, the governor asked school districts to cut 10 to 15% from their budget. In Lander education, as a school board member, what will your role in addressing this Wyoming state education budget deficit, or what will be your role in addressing the Wyoming state education budget deficit and still maintaining equal education? Let me read that closing question one more time. As a school board member, what will be your role in addressing the Wyoming state education budget deficit and still maintaining an equal education? Cherry, we're going to start with you.
I think that when we're facing budget cuts, it's important to remember that all of our students are different. Some excel in math, some excel in theater, some excel in English, and some excel in football. And it's important to take all these things into consideration. So talking to several different members of the community, I've actually thought up a way that it wasn't exactly my idea, it was a friend of mine's idea. Anyway, she was promoting this idea and telling me all these great things that can be benefited with low impact on our students. She suggested that we think about consolidating the school districts in the community. And so instead of having a school district in Lander and a school district in Riverton and a school district out on the reservation, we consolidate all of those into one Fremont County Unified School District. And that'll cut down, we'll have one superintendent, one budget manager, one person in all of these different areas, and the effects on the students will be minimal. I think that this would be great for our principals. They'll have more control over their designated schools. It'll be really, I think, a great solution for the problems that we're facing with very little effect on our students.
Thank you. Haley.
Am I allowed to have you repeat the question, too?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want the whole question or just the?
Just that final bit.
Great. As a school board member, what will be your role in addressing the Wyoming state education budget deficit while still maintaining equal education?
I think that's a heavy discussion, and I haven't much experience with budgets, only in a minimal fashion. So that would need to be, I think, a communal effort. of what the community prioritizes, what the teachers prioritize, and what the administration would prioritize. And I think we need to lend credence to all those voices and see what their thoughts are. See, I know it's going to be hard and it's going to be painful to cut a lot of things, and I do not want to see people lose their jobs over this, especially. And I do not want students impacted at all, but I know they will be. So it's a matter of how do we lessen the impact to the children, and how do we combat, job loss, because we are a small county and we don't have a lot of means for people to have jobs. So to be honest, I would need more input from all of those voices before I could make any sort of decision. And I would hope that everyone would feel comfortable getting a voice out there so that we could hear from all sides and take everything into consideration.
Thank you, Haley. Scott?
So this is going to be a real challenge for us. The equality aspect, we're fortunate Wyoming does a great job, and I think we're recognized nationally for the equality that we provide and how we fund education in this state. It's really rich communities, and the schools in one place really suffer where you have high quality and lots of money in the other community. We don't have that here, fortunately. The way we fund schools is very equitable. The money goes to the state, and then they have the model to distribute that to the various communities. That also means that we're somewhat beholden, or totally beholden, to the state legislature on how much money we're going to have to spend here in Lander. And our facilities that we've enjoyed across the state, the excellent buildings and schools that we have, largely funded by coal. And coal has been in decline for a while, and it's not likely to come back. So we're going to have to confront these problems. And I can't say that I have the solutions right now, except that those solutions are going to come from engaging all the stakeholders that we have. So teachers, administrators, the community, students are going to have to be involved in making the hard decisions on where cuts are going to happen. We're going to have to tighten our belts. But I'm confident that as a community we can come together on what those answers are going to be in such a way that we can continue to provide quality education for our kids. I believe that's possible. I'm confident we're going to be able to do it. And we'll find those solutions and we will move forward. And the good times will come again, hopefully. We've had a bus situation in Wyoming before, and we've gotten through that, and we'll do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Tim?
Yes, that is the looming problem that I think we all can see. Revenues are low coming in. And Wyoming has our money closed. My student body went from freshman year, I think 300 down to about 120 by the time I graduated. So things have changed a lot. It's kind of going through the wind. What I want to do as being a member or a member on the school board would be to listen to all parties. There are many stakeholders in this, and there are a lot of things to get into, a lot of things to work with. But there's going to be a lot of people in the community, people with students, there's staff, parents, and then there's people that don't have kids in school. They're going to also have voice in this. So I want to listen to all the voices as many as I can, come together and try to formulate something that we can work with and kind of at least agree on. I know it's going to be very difficult. There's going to be a lot of voices in Southern Utah and others. What I'm trying to do is make those voices similar.
Great. Thank you, Tim. Taylor?
Thank you. So to piggyback a little bit off what Cherry discussed, I have also heard conversations from people in the community about our 8 different school districts in Fremont County and how much top-heavy impact that has on our community. We also have a very transient community where we have students that are transferring from one school to another, and with different curriculums in every school, that can be a big challenge. And so on the greater level, the budget definitely could be improved vastly, and those cuts could be beneficial if we could look at mainstreaming and combining our school districts. I don't think that's something at the school board level that we have control over. That's obviously a greater state issue. But when I was looking at some of the data from the 2018-2019 school report card from the Wyoming Department of Ed, it states that on average, Gannett Peak Elementary spends $13,726 per student. The high school and Baldwin Creek spend $15,000 per student. The high school, or I'm sorry, Pathfinder is almost $25,000 per student, and Jeffrey City spends over $30,000 per student. So we just need to think of creative ways of how we can get these numbers down, how we can be cost effective in being able to serve our students, but also in a more mindful manner. We also have opportunities from the pool. The school district runs the community pool in Lander, but we also, at the school district, also pays the city utilities and water for the pool. So looking at funding and revenue sources coming from that should be an option, as well as looking at the land that the school district has available and North Elementary, what we could do to maybe generate some revenue to save those staff members from being cut their positions and ultimately impacting our students' education. Thank you.
Thanks, Taylor. Cammie?
Listening to your question, the thing that really stuck out to me was maintaining the equal education. And I think with, and the other part that really stuck out to me was the 50 to 75 staff members to potentially be cut. I do not believe that that has to happen. I think that the school board is going to have to really come together and work together as board members and with our stakeholders and really realize that your teachers and your students look at, just for Lander itself. Thinking about that, as for the role as to what to do, I mean, Taylor has really exactly right on point. I think the school district has already started looking at certain things to do with, like especially with the North Elementary. Nothing has really panned out, so I think just keep exploring those type of situations. As for the Unified School District, some of the legislatures that are running are actually proposing to do that, which they've done for years. So I think that even though that sounds fabulous, working in different districts is going to be touchy if that is something that the legislature brings down. And as a school board member, that means you're going to have to be ready for cultural differences, for philosophy differences. So I think that even though it is plausible, it's something that I think school board members really need to be aware of, that they need to be able to be more respectful. They need to be ready to show respect to all the districts around.
Thank you, Cammie. Kathy?
We're fortunate in Wyoming that education is mentioned in our Constitution. And so that gives us a right as educators and community members to contact our legislators and remind them that students in Wyoming are entitled to an equitable and fair education in our system. And I would suggest daily almost talk to a legislator, talk to someone in the community that has some power. I send emails, they don't even answer me anymore, honestly, but I send emails frequently reminding them of what good work we do in our schools. We as a school board in our last meeting came up with some talking points so that when we talk to legislators, we as a school board are talking the same points and directing those to the legislators. So that would be the first thing I do, is make sure that we talk to our legislators and let them know how important local education, public education is in our community. Next, I think, we talk about salaries and benefits. That's 80% of our budget in a school district. And I think through some attrition, we could figure out ways to maybe make some cuts in personnel. But I think that we can do things across the board that would not make it so painful. When we talk about 50 to 75 people being riffed, that is going to be devastating to our education. So I think we can look at ways. As a building principal, oftentimes it would come from the superintendent. You got to cut your supplies budget by 20% this year. Okay, we figured out how to do that. So I think across the board, we can do some of that and use attrition as one of the means to get to that. If necessary, I think probably we would have to prioritize classes. Obviously, core classes are most important, and we need to keep those. Lastly, I'd like to say that, yes, getting input from the community is valuable and vital, and I think we should do that. But I want to make sure that everyone understands that we as the board have to make the final decision, whether you like it or you don't like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Sarah?
I just want to say, I think that there's some really incredible ideas. I think that we need to look at curriculum. That's one of the things that has always bothered me as a teacher is the amount of money that is wasted on different curriculum packages that stick around for 3 or 4 years and then they throw it out and try a whole new curriculum. I'm not sure how much Landerson against consolidating Fremont County into one district because the demographic needs of every town in Fremont County are so wildly different that it would be almost impossible to guarantee an equal education if we consolidated into one district. So I would not take that approach. I would like to look into whether we could sell the building from North Elementary. What else can we do to bring in revenue with the swimming pool? I like that idea a lot too. And I think that there's a lot that you can do with that. But I think really it's going to come down to contacting the legislators and reminding them that not only is it a constitutional right for our students to have that equal education, but that then makes it their constitutional mandate to fund our schools. And remind them that that is something that they were elected to uphold, is our Wyoming Constitution, and that includes educating our kids. And then there are a ton of grant opportunities out there for ways to bring in extra money, and we will have to have some really hard conversations. Some staff will have to be cut, some programs will have to be cut, but which ones and how you can set that up to least impact students is a really long conversation that's going to take a lot of research and a lot of just really, really hard choices to make.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, team. We're going to move on to our second question. It is shorter. And again, you'll have 2 minutes to respond to this. So the second question. In July 2019, the school district passed Policy CKA that allows approved and trained staff to carry concealed weapons in our schools. Do you support the policy? And what would you advocate for to ensure our schools are safe learning environments? So again, the question of it is, do you support Policy CKA? And what would you advocate for to ensure our schools are safe learning environments? This time we're starting with Tim.
In my history, in the places that I've worked, I've also worked as a safety officer for clinics and a hospital. And where I currently work now, I'm working at the Sheriff's Department in the jails. And so I've had some opportunity to talk to some of the people that their job description is protecting the community. I'm trying to get kind of ideas of what their viewpoints are. There's many. If you ask me directly, with my daughter, if she was in school right now, I wouldn't want guns in school. I don't feel comfortable with that. That being said, there's many in the community that are more comfortable with that. I still have some questions about the CKA rule. I read wrong and a child should get hurt. It's the teacher who did it. I understand. From what I can read, I've seen not to be another person shot. So maybe perhaps no one wants to go something like that. But another aspect that I found just talking with others in the Sheriff's Department, and then it's also the Police Department. If someone, if there's a staff member that is authorized to have a handgun in the school, wants to protect them from when the police do come in, the Sheriff's Department do respond to it. Generally, they see an adult or anybody with a weapon that's not in uniform, they're going to take that person down. So in a high-stakes environment like that, where adrenaline's pumping, is that necessarily safe for a staff member to There's those aspects I think are troubling too. As far as that get the safety, yes, I believe that there's many things you can do in school to make it safe. We've done many things already compared to when I was school and the way it is now, as far as entry into a school. And stop at that point as much as possible. You will never have to go to the point where things go wrong.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Cherry?
This I know has been a touchy subject in Lander. So while I do see the many points that people offer, I am very much in favor of this policy. I think many times the situations that people have bring up about their worries don't take into account the active shooter situation like they had in Columbine, like they had in Sandy Hook. I think in situations like that, had they had a trained person with a concealed weapon carrying, then those situations would have been a lot less detrimental. I don't foresee that happening in our small, tight, close-knit community, but it is always a potential, especially in the world that we live in. Reading through the policy, I noticed that not only are the teachers and staff members who are being trained, they're trained extensively. They are trained in accuracy, they are trained in when it's appropriate and when it's needed. And they are also trained psychologically, and they go through psychological evaluations periodically after they have been licensed to carry. And I think that if one of our teachers or one of the staff members are comfortable carrying a concealed weapon and they feel like they are willing to take on that responsibility, I think that it's important that we let them, so that when situations arise, when things happen that are putting our children's lives in danger, somebody's there to protect them. And I think that that's something that is definitely worth continuing to discuss. And honestly, I feel a little bit safer sending my kids to school knowing that somebody there is willing to put their lives at risk to make sure that my children are safe.
Thanks, Cherry. Kathy?
Oh, this is a loaded question. If any of you followed the CKA process through the school board at all, you'll know that I was not in favor of having teachers carry weapons in our school. I believe that teachers are there to teach, and as a former teacher myself, I knew what my bond was with my kids, and I felt like a weapon would interfere with that bonding. That's my personal belief. Now, I'm a member of the board. It was passed, so my job becomes not to go around saying I hate CKA and I'm never going to support it. My job is to support CKA and to help to make it better. So we've had some edits on it. We've had some conversations about it, and I think there's some things that we can do to improve CKA. But frankly, if it were to come to a vote again, I would probably have the same stance and vote against it. That's my personal belief. But I do, as a school board member, at this point, support CKA in the schools.
Thank you, Kathy. Cammie?
I have had little kids with a student outside my door with a gun. I am for this policy. My little kids were asking me for the biggest books so they could log the board. I totally support this policy. And to begin with you, at the beginning, I was not so sure about it, just because I was afraid of having a teacher with an untrained gunman as a teacher. You know what I'm trying to say. I get emotional. So, but I was afraid to have a teacher have a gun who was not trained how to use it correctly. After that situation happened in the building that I was in, I took training from biotactical, and I learned how to handle the gun well. And looking at the policy, it's pretty straightforward. I think it's written pretty well. I do believe that there are some things to add to it, such as adding some more de-escalation training. Keeping a trauma-informed educator on staff would be helpful, or at least train your educators to be trauma-informed. I do like the idea of having more mental health counseling for those who are volunteering to carry. And then I am a big advocate for keeping an SRO as well. That is, I know a lot of school districts are cutting their SRO just out of budget, but I would really like to keep an SRO on staff just for that policy. But yes, I would vote absolutely for it. There's nothing worse than sitting there not knowing what to do and having all these little kids look at you and there's nothing you can do.
Thank you, Cammie. Sarah?
If anybody was following the policy discussions last year, they probably saw my name come up a lot on different forums and communications. I am very firmly against this policy, mostly because I agree with what Kathy said, that your relationship with your student themselves. I feel like it's much more important for us to have our teachers bond and build relationships with students to try to prevent them from getting to the point where bringing a weapon to school would be a possibility for them. I feel like we need more mental health support services in our schools, SRO in every building, every day, ideally. But I also understand that if I were chosen to be on the school board, this policy does exist. And then, it would become my job to manage the policy as it is. I feel like there are a lot of aspects of this policy that are broken, including the decision to remove the requirement for bias training in every teacher who wants to carry, or every staff member, excuse me. So I would add back in bias training for every person before they even are allowed to consider carrying a weapon in schools. I think that we do need to look more at the liability policy, part of the policy, because there is no protection, as far as I can tell, for a staff member who did discharge their weapon. And there also is some question about specificity of words in the policy. It was discussed last year whether or not a weapon can be displayed when there's an immediate threat versus an imminent threat. The policy states immediate threat, which means, hey, I think there's somebody in the building who might have a weapon, could be seen as an immediate threat, but imminent means right now it is happening. So we need to look at that policy more closely.
Thank you, Sarah. Mm-hmm. Haley?
Can I have you echo the last half of that question?
Sure. The question reads, do you support policy CKA, and what would you advocate for to ensure our schools are safe learning environments?
Okay. I, for one, do not support the CKA. I still do not. I would echo Tim and Sarah's concern, as well as Kathy's. I think there's a lot of shoring up in that policy where it should continue. The liability is a big one. I can't imagine a worse tragedy than both a child and a teacher getting shot by police coming into an active shooter situation and not knowing who is the active shooter and who isn't, and they have to make a quick snap decision as well. I don't want anything like what Cammie ever experienced to ever happen again. So I think we need to look at how do we help students who want to come into the building with a weapon? How do we provide them a better mental health? How do we stop this at the source as opposed to figuring out more brutal way to stop it in process? I think we need to look at mental health for children. I think we need to look at how we can help them before that happens. I know we have great counselors on staff. How do we reach out to the community, and is there any way that we are legally able to? I don't know. That might be too far reaching of a thought, but I am for teachers teaching and for not having the added stressor in. We already expect so much of our teachers. My teachers teach my children. They help raise your children. They come to love and protect your children, yes. But I don't want trauma enforced on our teachers by having to carry a weapon. I don't want students stressed by their teachers possibly discharging a weapon. And all the other studies that have shown that weapons are not effective in schools and keep taking them away has driven down violence since all the gun safe zones were passed.
Thank you, Haley. Taylor?
Thank you. So I am an advocate of our Second Amendment rights, but as a parent and as someone that first heard about this policy, I definitely had some hesitations. Working in the school and as a mental health provider, I always want to work on the preventative strategies that we can do. I was initially concerned with the policy and just wondering what that was going to mean for SROs, if there was going to be removal of the SRO officers. And so I could definitely see, the community's concerns initially. I have thoroughly reviewed the plan, and I think that it's an actually very solid plan. I think the school board did a great job collecting data on other situations in which unfortunate accidents of school shootings occurred. And at this point, I support the CKA policy. I think it's an added buffer to our schools. I think it's one layer of protection, and it's one that's, if it ever is going to have to be used, there are all these other layers that are first going to be addressed. I think liability is always an issue. After a school shooting, a parent could come back to the school and say, well, you didn't provide enough mental health support for my child. So we can't necessarily compare liability to this unless we're going to talk about liability in 100 different instances in our lives. And nothing in life is risk-free. There's risks in everything we do. But I think that the district worked together and the board worked together on a plan. And so if I were to be elected on the school board, I would come in and I would support the plan that's in place. And I would also listen to the community's concerns and make adjustments where necessary on the policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Scott?
So I do support this policy strongly. So I've been trained in law enforcement response to active shooters, both as a team response, individual response. I've been trained in the civilian response to an active shooter incident, the ALICE training. Something we have to keep out of things in our schools. We have, limited access. You have to be buzzed in through doors. We have 2 SROs. We have ALICE-trained staff and students. We have measures in the schools that allow for some degree of defense or to limit access and mobility for any sort of shooter that would come. The likelihood of an active shooter in Lander is extremely small. Probably never going to happen. Would hope it would never happen, but the loss of life, were it to happen, would be incredibly tragic and irrecoverable. And for that reason, we have to have that last layer of defense, which is some number of armed adults in those schools that are volunteers, that are capable, competent, that are prepared and trained. We have former law enforcement, former military, and others that are just competent and comfortable with a firearm. The training procedures that we have laid out in that policy are excellent. And will ensure that any teacher that volunteers to participate will be ready. And were the worst thing to happen, they're going to be that last line of defense. We know if you just look at Parkland, there were 34 people shot in that incident, half of which died. And they all got shot before dispatch could even notify the first law enforcement officer to start going there. And that's not unique to Parkland. It takes minutes for law enforcement, many minutes for law enforcement to respond, and frequently the incident is over before they can get there. And so we need to have people in place in the buildings that can stop that shooter before more children are killed. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. That was a heavy question, right, to imagine a school shooting anywhere, including our local community. So I just want to take a moment to thank you for addressing that as thoroughly as you did, and for working through your opinions and your experiences in a way that the voters could understand where you're coming from. So thank you. Okay, we're going to shift. My next question, you'll only have a minute to respond. So half the time. Okay? Here we go. The Wyoming Department of Education's mission and vision is to significantly increase the percentage of our students that are college, career, or military ready. By setting high expectations and providing diverse learning opportunities, the school system believes that they will empower students to succeed in district, are prepared for college, career, and life.
We're going to start with you.
I know in order to get someone ready like that, you need a fully rounded, holistic education that's inclusive, that teaches the value of diversity, of compassion, of empathy. It needs to teach the basics, the core, so they have a fundamental knowledge. It also needs to teach discipline so that they are ready and able to take care of themselves, prepare for the future, and to make sure that they understand the heavy load that comes along with college, with careers, with military, whatever path they choose to take. And I feel that, especially with budget cuts moving overhead, that's going to be difficult in the years to come. But I hope that we can all work together and prepare our students because we all want them to succeed.
Thanks, Haley. Taylor? I agree with Haley that post-secondary skills should emphasize a collaborative and cohesive and holistic approach. I oftentimes see
Students that are astounding, smart kids, very capable, go off to college and they lack the basic skills needed to live on their own. They don't know how to cook, they don't know how to take care of a bank account, they don't know any of those life skills that I think throughout the years, because in the school system we have to put so much emphasis on academics that some of that has gotten taken away. I'd like to see us look at going back to some of the basics of what to do to be a growing, capable adult and getting children, getting high schoolers career ready and ready for their future. And that's it. Thanks, Taylor. Cherry.
So I think that
This is going to sound awful, and this is the mom coming out of me, but to stop catering to them, to quit hovering over them, to quit
doing everything for them. So I think that the best way to ensure they're ready is to back their teachers. You know, a lot of times with my own son, a teacher would call home. He came from Flagstaff and he had probably a 30-page behavioral IEP. And the teacher would call me and say, he was just such a nightmare today. And, you know, I always made sure that I backed that teacher. You know, I made sure that my student understood that you have to behave a certain way when you're in certain places. And I think a lot of that is going to the wayside. A lot of our teachers are afraid to voice the concerns with the children. And so I think the best way to ensure that our children are ready for the future that lies ahead, that we ensure that our teachers are supported in all of the various situations.
Thanks, Jerry. Tim?
Yes, I'm going to echo a lot of what's already been said. We do need, I think our students should be experienced in many different ways through school and at home. So some of that falls on the parents, but as far as the school district and the teachers and the education and the schools they go to, it should be as well-rounded as possible. So there are many core, I know there's a lot of cuts coming as well, but through education, through sports, through those social aspects of, when I was in high school, there was Key Club and the student council, allowing kids to kind of, especially as they get older, express some of their spirit in a creative and kind of guided aspects so that they can be an.
Thank you. Cami.
I think that we need to start teaching our students, teach them how to think and not what to think. I think a lot of times in the school district, sometimes they think that we feel as though we need to have our students mimic whatever we believe our belief system is at that time, rather than saying, wait a minute, well, let's break this apart, analyze it, and teach you how to think, not teach you what to think and just do whatever I say. I think that the communication skills, collaboration skills are important, the arts, the social skills, the life skills, as well as giving them new experiences so that they learn how to think, and regulation tools so they can regulate themselves with a lot of, especially with the trauma that students endure.
Thank you, Cami. Scott?
Keep forgetting to put that mask back on. So my kids, because of my career, I guess, have had a chance to attend school in 6 different school districts over the years, and none of those places has schools nearly as good as we have here in Lander. We do an excellent job here. I think we can continue to do that by providing diverse opportunities for our kids, both through academics and extracurriculars. We can help them find ways where they're passionate, ways that they can, avenues to strive, avenues to fail, and avenues to overcome that failure and succeed. And I think we do a great job in that. Tim told us earlier how when he left high school and went to college, he was very prepared. And I think that's not an uncommon story. Although I didn't graduate in Lander, my experience was the same. When I got to college, I found myself far more prepared than my peers there. So I think we can continue to do that here in Lander. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Sarah?
So I went to school here in Lander, and I went to Sterrett Junior High and the LVHS, and in the classes that I got to take in that point in time, I took 2 cooking classes, a sewing class, an auto fundamentals class, and an applied math class that talked about bank accounts, credit cards, all of that kind of stuff. That used to be here in Lander. I don't know what we have left from that, but I really think it's important that we put those kinds of programs back into our curriculum. They can be Common Core aligned very easily. And so that's something that we really need to look at. What kind of skills are we sending our kids with? If we, if we said to our kid today, here is your household, take care of it, are they ready for that? And I like what Cherry said about supporting our teachers and really just kind of stopping giving our kids whatever they need. Make sure that we teach them those mindfulness skills that, like, I know the elementary kids here are getting a lot about how to stay focused. So stay on that track. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy?
By going last, I can ditto everything everyone has said. I would like to say that Lander does have very strong core classes. And I think that's evident. Every time we have a graduating class, we hear where students are going and what they're doing and how they're going to move forward. I think sometimes we maybe forget those that are not the real high flyers. And so schools like Pathfinder, et cetera, need to continue in order to support kids that maybe struggle a little bit more academically, socially, or emotionally. Sports and activities are extremely important. We must keep those in our schools. For some kids, that's what keeps them in schools and keeps their grades up. Also, we have curricular strengths here, and I think that our professional learning communities that our teachers and principals all engage in help strengthen us looking at those common standards. And I'd like to see that continue, as well as some service learning and some STEM education, and really have a strong curriculum to help our kids be successful out there in the real world. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, team, we're going to move on to the lightning round to refresh us, because there were a lot of instructions and there's a lot happening. For this first version of the lightning round, I'm going to give you each a word. You're each getting a different word. They were randomly paired with you, and you'll have a minute to respond to that word. The word is equity.
I think equity means that every student has equal opportunity, even if they don't have the same level. It's really about meeting kids where they are and meeting what every student's needs are equally. Equal and fair are not always the same thing, and so I think it takes a really individualized look at what each student needs, and making sure that that we are fulfilling that to help them grow as a whole student to find success.
Thanks, Sarah. Tim, you're next. Your word is transparency.
Transparency means to me open lines of communication and making decisions and questions available to all of the community, staff, the community at large. So County 10 is a great example of this. What we're doing right now is a great example of this. Opening it up to as many people as possible so that they can get information and share ideas and debate some issues. And that's for all the loud voices out there and all the quiet voices. Try to put some level of quality into it so that the loud voices don't drown out the quiet voices. All voices have something to offer. And try to do that in a very...
Thanks, Tim. Chair, your word is tenure.
Tenure. I think that the teachers that we have in our Fremont County School District are phenomenal. Like I said, we moved here from a different place, and where school districts were lacking, and I have really been dumbfounded that teachers can be as great as the teachers that I've had experience with. I think that to continue with teachers reaching their full potential so that our students can reach their full potential, if tenure is an option, then sometimes I think that that will lack. If my job is secure, I'm not going to work as hard as I can. Where if we keep people on, if we're kept on our toes, then we tend to do our very best.
Thanks, Cherry. Kathy, your words are harassment and bullying.
Oh goodness, words of the day. Definitely it does occur, and we do have policy as a board that we have worked on extensively, and sometimes with disagreement, but we've made sure that that was inclusive as possible. We have policy that allows people to report that without further harassment. So from a policy standpoint, we're very strong, I think, in the district on frowning on those being potential problems for either adults or children in the setting. That being said, I know that principals and teachers are continually on guard against that in buildings, and it can occur, and it should not occur because it's very hurtful to children. So I would encourage our board to continue to look at that as a social emotional issue in our community and to support our policies as they stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Haley, your words are staff retention.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
Staff retention is so important, especially when we have such good quality teachers. And I think we need to look at, especially going forward in Wyoming, when we're facing budget cuts, when we're facing some tough issues, how do we keep good staff around? If we're having to shave here and there and people are worried about their jobs, how do we offer different ways, different incentives to keep people motivated to stay here? Yes, we've got a gorgeous state, but if we can't pay you much for beans, I don't know people who are going to stick around. I think making sure that we have strong staff, if they're unionized, that we support them. If we offer such things as tenure or other incentives to keep people around, I really want to look at ways that we can keep those quality educators involved in our children's lives.
Thanks, Haley. Cami, your word is communication.
Communication goes beyond just that word. So you have, I would associate it with communication with parents and communication with students and communication with teachers, administration, certified staff, classified staff. We have, I think communication is so important to make sure that it is clear and it's concise and everybody knows exactly what is expected and everybody knows exactly what to do. I think that communication is oftentimes overlooked due to policy, and so sometimes communication is not as forthcoming to people because it's in the policy, the communication should be open for discussion and available.
Thanks, Cami. Scott, yours is mental health services.
Mental health services, that's 3 words. I think I got the most. So that's a critical component to a safe and secure learning environment for our kids, is that they have the ability to work through issues they may personally be having. And I know we have quality school counselors in each of our buildings that is capable and willing to reach out and help. We also have so many teachers that are passionate and love their students and are engaged with parents and making sure that needs are being met from multiple directions. I feel like we do a good job of that. We could probably do better. That bleeds right into harassment and bullying and how we can help prevent those things. We have the Safe to Tell app that allows people to report when they see a problem without stigmatism or feeling like they're going to have backlash. I think we can have a multifaceted approach that's going to help keep us in a good position that way.
Thanks, Scott. Taylor. Professional learning community.
Wonderful opportunity for our staff to get together, to be able to collaborate with each other, to share one person's going to a professional development opportunity for them to come back and share it with the group and have a cohesive idea about a strategy or an idea. And it's really vital for our community and our schools. And Lander schools have always done a phenomenal job with professional learning communities. And this year I've heard that because of sub-issues, the PLCs, and some of the professional development situations have kind of had to be revamped, and the schools have done, and the administrators have done a wonderful job offering classes and PLC opportunities and professional development opportunities in the evenings for their staff. So it's very important in education.
Thanks, Taylor. Felt a little bit like we were in a spelling bee. I was waiting for somebody to say equity, EQU. Okay, so we have another lightning round, and it was meant to be just 30 seconds, but I'm going to go ahead and give everybody a minute, if my timekeeper will agree. My timekeeper agrees, because I'm really interested to hear what you all have to say. And another 30 seconds seems like we can do that. So Kathy, you're up first this time. You have a minute. Your phrase, we're going to go with phrase rather than word, is visual and performing arts.
Okay, visual and performing arts, I think, are a vital piece in education. I think a well-rounded individual appreciates more than just reading, writing, arithmetic, the core values that we have in our school. And I got to say, Lander schools are pretty darn good at providing multiple opportunities for students in this area. I think music and art classes and other performance arts and visual arts enrich our experience as students, but also as lifelong learners. I myself am a very artistic person. I love to paint with acrylics, and I learned that early in my life, and I've carried it through, and it sustained me as an adult in ways that nothing else would. So I would advocate that we continue visual arts and performing arts in our school. And this may be a huge discussion when we get to those budget issues, but I do support it.
Thank you, Kathy. Tim, your phrase is school lunch.
School lunch. Depending on where I was going through school, I mean, I ate a lot of hot lunches at school until I decided I didn't want those anymore. And then I went home and ate french fries and not quite as much. School lunches are necessary, they're important. It should be far more diverse than what I experienced when I was younger. And they are more diverse, I believe. From what I've heard from my daughter when she was in high school, school lunches have gotten better as far as a mix of things to eat than what I've experienced in the past. I think there can be improvements. I know I've heard from others here that Hannah being one, she's encouraging gardens, and I haven't even thought about that. But gardens at schools supplying some food and fresh vegetables for the students. It's a great idea. I fully support that idea. It's wonderful.
Thanks, Tim. Sarah, after school programs.
After school programs are essential in a number of ways. One is to be able to give kids an opportunity for enrichment or added support. after the traditional school day has ended. They've also become really essential for parents in a lot of communities where their kids maybe are not old enough yet to be home alone after school, but their job doesn't allow them to end their day at the same time as kids, and childcare is insanely expensive. So it's a really cool opportunity for school districts to build on what's happening during the day and offer out that safe place for kids to go at the end of the day. Lander, I had the privilege of working for Lights On very shortly after it was created, maybe even the first year. And when I student taught in South Dakota, my cohort helped create the first after-school program in Spearfish, so that's something that is really important to me.
Thanks, Sarah. Taylor, sports.
Sports, awesome, okay. Sports are a vital piece of our community, not only for the students, but for their families. When you go to a Lander sporting event, you see such a cohesive and wonderful, enriching environment. You see younger siblings and family members out supporting not just their player, but the team in general. It's a wonderful way to keep kids occupied and engaged. As Kathy said earlier, there's a lot of our students that might be struggling academically at school, and knowing that sports is an option for them, they know that they need to keep those academics up in order to play sports. Again, with budget issues and things like that, I know that some things are on the table, but I think with boosters and fundraising and opportunities, our sports in our community should always be allowed and always be promoted. And I think we should look at other ways that we can help benefit and support our athletic department.
Thanks, Taylor. Cami, school drop-off and pickup.
I think that school drop-off and chaos, the first thing that comes to my mind is safety and making sure that our students are safe. And I also would like to say safety for our staff, because it's also there, and responsibility would be another word that I would associate with that, and not only the staff, but also the parents. I also think that the city does a great job with making sure that we have crosswalks and that testing available.
Thank you. Scott, Cami, did I cut you off?
No.
Okay, great, perfect. Scott, National History Day.
National History Day. You know, we have last year, and I think maybe every year, we've had kids go to nationals for National History Day, which is fantastic, and I think exemplifies sort of the attitude we have in Lander for providing opportunities for our kids to find what they're passionate about. So for some kids that is sports, and for other kids that's going to be more academically minded extracurricular activities like History Day or Future Business Leaders of America, or we have other kids doing dance or being involved in the school play. And I believe it's critical for our kids. If we're going to meet the district's goal to educate students to become responsible citizens who respect one another and have the motivation, skills, and knowledge to succeed, we have to provide more than just core classes. We have to provide these other things that provide kids passion and opportunity, and that keep them involved in school, so that if the core curriculum isn't their thing, they're still going to have to do it because they want to do these other things as well.
Thanks, Scott. Cherry, Lights On.
I think Lights On is a great program. I don't know any children in Lights On. Like I said, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and so my kids have constantly begged me to be able to go to Lights On, which might mean I'm failing as a mother, but I hope not. But I think that it's a wonderful opportunity to get give high school students an opportunity to associate and be role models for those younger students. I think that's one of the pluses of the Lights On program.
Thanks, Cherry. Haley, 6th grade Yellowstone trip.
Oh, I got that. 6th grade Yellowstone trip. Oh my goodness, that's something I didn't get to do when I was in 6th grade. And I don't know how many kids around the country get to do that. How many kids are able to do such wonderful things when they're in a school with several, like thousands of other kids? What do? I mean, I can't imagine a better thing for sixth graders to be able to do, to go out and experience nature, to get to see national parks, to get to understand why we have national parks and how Yellowstone was the very first national park. I think it's so important to get our kids excited about where we live, the history of where we live, the ecology of where we live, how we're involved, and how we keep our environment safe and able to visit and be able to share that with future generations as well.
Thanks, Haley. Okay, team, last question, which is a scenario. You're going to have 30 seconds to respond to the question. I'm asking everybody the same question. I'm going to read you the question, then I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and then I'm going to start calling on people. Okay. So, after this forum, you're provided with a new round of election candidate yard signs. What 3 words, not including school board, FCSD1, or your name, would you include on your new sign, and why? So once again, new yard signs going out tomorrow. You get a chance to put 3 words on that sign, and 3 words only that are not your name, the school district, or school board. What are your 3 words and why? And I'm going to give you 30 seconds, and then I'll start calling on people. Okay. Tim, you're up first.
Well, the 3 words that really came to my mind would be vote, listen, participate. Vote, participate may kind of sound the same, they're a little bit different. Voting, you vote for who you feel most comfortable and most satisfied by supporting your views. Participation is not only voting, but also coming to school board meetings and listening to the issues that they're dealing with. And then to listen to other people's voices. They bring a lot to the table as well.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Sarah.
Kids, staff, and futures. Because without the kids, what are we doing? Without the staff, who's going to educate our kids? And the future is really what it's all about.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Cammie?
I said support today's students and having support, because if we support our teachers, our administrators, certified CrossFit staff, and our families, and for today, for our students today, and that will be for future generations as well.
Okay. Thank you, Cammie. Taylor?
I said advocate, empower, and experience. Advocate because it's important for a school board member to advocate for the community as well as for the students, empowering the voices that they need to, and my experience, I believe, helps put me in that position to do those 2 things.
Okay. Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you.
Kathy?
What is me? I wasn't paying attention.
That's okay.
My 3 words are knowledge, experience, and passion. I think knowledge and experience go together for me, and that as I suggested earlier, I have 41 years of doing this job of education, so I would continue that. But I think the passion that I have for kids and educators and the school system and public education is something that I bring to a board, and I could really appreciate being able to continue to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cherry?
Success, because I think everyone can be successful if they work hard and they have integrity.
Okay. Thank you, Cherry. Haley?
I would write bridge building skills, because we live in a very strong and proud community where we have several different groups, several different voices. And as Tim started before, there's some quieter voices, there are some stronger voices. And I think it's important to be able to speak to all of those voices and to be able to communicate and build those bridges so that we have a stronger foundation for our children.
Thanks, Haley. And Scott.
I wrote down success, security, and values. I think if we want our kids, as I do, to be happy, successful, productive members of society, it starts with success at school. And that can best happen in a secure environment where they feel nurtured and safe, and where our community values are upheld and exemplified as they are today.
Okay. Thank you. That was great, team. Thanks for that. I want to thank you all for taking time tonight to let the voters know more about you and your views on important issues facing the school district. As a voter, I know I am leaving this forum much more educated than I was when I came in. I thank you for running for office and for your willingness to serve the community. Being in a school board is kind of a big deal, and I really appreciate that you are willing to put forth that effort and that energy. I'd like to encourage everybody, present and on the internet, to go to the League of Women Voters of Fremont County Facebook page to find out more about our local elections and to download a copy of the General Election Voter Guide if somehow it did not make it into your mailbox. And I just want to reiterate my thanks. You all did a great job, and I just am so impressed of your willingness to serve the community in this way. For folks in this room, to exit and prevent the alarm from sounding and thus the police from coming, go out that back door, down the stairs or elevator, and exit towards North 2nd. The main library is closed, and if you head that way, the alarm sounds, the police come.